All right, so some good conversations. We covered a number of different topics. We talked about the challenges. We talked about some great ideas that the people on this around this panel are working on. We chatted about the foreign trade zone and what that looks like, and we're happy to dive into that if you'd like, because there's lots of potential there, but it is very complex, and we understand that. But I think we're at a point now where we can move forward. So I know, Dave, you had some questions. I think that you were sending there. I see you there. Did you have all your questions answered in the panel, or is there anything specific you want to address to our panelists? Just you go ahead and open your mic there.
Awesome. What I was trying to get to is like I'm learning a lot about trade, moving product, and the foreign trade zone. I'm just trying to wrap my head around what it means for like administering my business. So like my specific questions earlier were about, I import sea cans full of packaging or ingredients, and normally I get them launched to Vancouver just because it's quicker. And I can move a container for under $2,000 from Van. So, but I don't want to continue shipping products to Vancouver if I can land them here on the island. Like,
correct.
So it just, and the foreign trade zone as a concept is fascinating, but I still don't understand how I can fucking use it, like what I can do about it. So I was just trying to get around like, oh, is there a benefit to moving big trade or into the foreign trade zone, or when I export product to the States or to Europe or to China, like should I be exporting through Vancouver Island instead of Vancouver, which is where I send my products to the harbor, the port before they go? Like how can I use the foreign trade zone to my advantage?
So I'm just curious. So it sounds like, Dave, you're exporting now. Is that a fair question?
I export way less than I want to, but
gotcha.
Yeah, I do export.
Okay. So again, so we don't kind of hijack the whole conversation, but I'd be more than happy, to get in touch with you directly, because here's what we've been doing, because there's a lot of things, we currently don't know what we don't know. But what both myself and George is very active in this process, as well as along with some other folks on the Foreign Trade Zone Committee, is we're happy to come in and really look specifically at what you're doing. And the words that come to mind are almost take you on as a case study and help you navigate some of the waters. And because the $1 million question is like, is there a business case for all those things? Can you get the economies of scale? Can we start bringing the your packaging here first and foremost? Does it make sense? Can we drive your export business? If there's other things we can do, and we can run through a whole host of those scenarios. And that's really kind of harken back to that concierge opportunity, is that there's folks that we can tap on the shoulder, not that you necessarily couldn't get to them through the government, but are kind of our pipeline that can, speak very eloquently to that. And we just work through the process. So, I guess the takeaway is I think we should take it offline, and we'd be more than happy to have a look and see if there's a way to make this work for you. Absolutely.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Okay, good. And P.S. I'm not opposed to coming to the distillery, just for the record. That's
nice. Yeah, usually goes over well with guests.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we often like to or prefer, it's just good business practices to vet our business partners. So we have to do a little quality control test their first day before we bring you on as a case study.
Yeah.
Great. Any other questions or a comment, or even a success story? Our panelists talked a little bit about that, or a real challenge. Like, what is one of those seemingly unsurmountable challenges on getting foods to market that we need to be thinking about? Here's a question here. There seems to be over packaging with goods. What are some suggestions for island food and good producers to get foods to market in a more environmentally friendly way? Who would like to take on that one? How do we be more environmentally efficient? Mark?
No, I was going to be mean and direct that to Marissa to start with, because I think she's the environmental packaging expert. So I think I've got some ideas, but she's the expert to start.
Okay, Marissa?
Yeah.
Ivan?
We do actually use a package which is 50% less plastic than other yogurt containers. So if you find our product on the shelf, you'll see it's a lighter plastic, but it's wrapped with a cardboard wrapper, which reinforces it and gives it more strength. So that's something to consider. And I actually was at this summit last year talking about the circular economy, and there's a lot of packaging used for things to go into cases, like cardboard cases, and then onto pallets, and there's all the plastic that the pallet wraps get wrapped with. So there's a lot of steps along the way. One of the things is, if you are in the food business, there are regulations in terms of food safety, so that's a consideration. But one thing we found, because we've kind of done a deep dive, was we did find some reusable pallet wrappers. So it's like a big mesh green thing that goes around your pallet rather than all the saran wrap that gets used. So that was a really neat innovation. We've also looked at the reusable crates, kind of like the milk crates, or like a frog box or a Rubbermaid, that sort of thing. But you do need to be conscientious about sanitizing those, because they go into the world and you don't want them back at your factory without having a cleaning step. And that can use a lot of water, labor, and cleaning solutions. So you kind of have to do the pros and cons. We actually went through and designed an open case. So it's more of a tray. It's not a case with a cover. So we've reduced the amount of plastic or cardboard that we use in our case. So that helped to get the unit cost down as well. And it just is kind of like a win-win, right? But you do need to, depending on where your product's going, we found that reducing the packaging led to potentially challenges with breakage and loss. Mm-hmm.
There was a direct question to you there, Marissa. Did you get your reusable pallet covers back?
Yeah, well, we because we do our own trucking, we would only use the reusable pallets when pallet covers when it was within our own system. So that was something that we talked about at the summit last year, and then potentially something maybe where there could be a cooperative or a I don't know, like a system, like kind of like there's CHEP pallets where everyone kind of pays into a system and everyone can use them. And then there's care that needs to be taken. So there could be a reusable box system. It's like everybody, when we were out there, just when we started out, we used Rubbermaids, and we'd had our name on the side of the box. And then we found out that they got mixed up with other people that used Rubbermaids, right? So there's potential. I think it could be a business. I was actually looking into it. I've looked into the purchasing. So you do need 3 sets. You need like a set at your plant. You need stuff that's out there with customers and stuff that's on its way back or being cleaned. So you need a lot of units if you are doing reusable. And again, there's the water, cleaning, and storage aspect. So I think it's valuable, but you really need, I think there needs to be a business, like an analysis. And it could be done in a cooperative system, or it would be in a trucking way. You would need buy-in from people that you're delivering to, for whoever your business partners are with. It can take up space in their warehouse, and it could be, there are collapsible options, and there's a lot of details and logistics to work through. But I think it is something we need to think about for sure, right, for the future.
If I could throw something in there, it might be worthwhile for you to check with United Flower Growers Cooperative Auction in Burnaby, because the buckets in the flower business, everybody pays a deposit on them, and then you get the deposit refunded when you send the bucket back with either the wholesaler or the wholesaler to the auction.
Okay.
And, now, buckets are probably easier than what you're talking about. But.
No, that's great. That's my hobby, is I sell a lot of buckets, actually. I have a lot of buckets so I'm kind of like the bucket lady, but I like that because it has value. And I think we're become accustomed to recycling things and just putting it into be used downstream. But I think it has value just as it is, right? The more we use it, we get more value out of the lifespan of that piece of plastic, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to throw a hanging curveball here to my friend who's the president of the Pacific Seaweed Growers Association. I've come to learn working with Mark Smith and fine folks at Cascadia about biopackaging made from seaweed, and they are one of the anchor tenants in our dock food hub, and the space that they have there is looking like it's going to be utilized for some R&D and creative ways of meeting alternate needs in the consumer market space, and not just in terms of seaweed for ingestion, food source consumption, but possibly being that the silver bullet to reduce packaging of food products. And Pacific Seaweed Growers Association, Mark, your group's looking at some research and partnerships in that field too, as well.
Yeah, that's correct. So thanks, Dave. No pressure again. That's fine. But you're absolutely correct. And again, fortuitously, Marissa and I started to have this conversation. So there's a number of groups. In fact, I read an article today, and of course, it escapes me what country it was in. But there's an organization specifically in California, a company out of Silicon Valley, and they've got about a year of R&D, and they believe they've got a process where they're currently converting seaweed into biopackaging. And it's interesting, so which ties into one of your anchor tenants, which is Cascadia Seaweed. If you happen to be listening into the seaweed session the other day, as they launch into their consumer packaged goods product line in the next 1 to 3 years, their grandiose vision is to, when they're selling you hypothetically your seaweed jerky, looks like that's their first product on their radar, is that it would actually be, not only you would be receiving the seaweed jerky, it would be packaged in seaweed. So it's the whole 360-degree life cycle. That's the vision. So yes, absolutely correct. So that point is, the reality is, on all these packaging options, again, thanks, Marissa, because you always set it up so eloquently for me to dovetail into easily with these other add-ons, is that, again, it's really about all of these pieces require some economies of scale to get together. And I think, and specifically what we collaboratively are all trying to do in the island with 800,000. So we're not even going to try and reverse engineer the numbers of how many producers and manufacturers that might be. But the only way we're going to be successful in all those things is to figure those out together and get some joint facilities, joint distribution, joint trucking, joint barges, all of those things. It absolutely needs to be, or it's going to be, it's going to be a tough row. And I just want to dive into, because I saw that there was a question that popped up right in there. Somebody asked about that there was some, I think it was Vicky, had asked about that. We clearly in the talk, we had talked about international exporting, and her question, if memory serves, was around really, so she was a local producer thinking more around provincial and even extra provincial markets. And again, I would defer, Marissa's really expert, but I would also suggest, and they, a little plug for them, as they're also a summit sponsor, is the Export Navigator program. If folks are not familiar with that and they're looking at export, and I think everybody looks at that program and go, hey, I'm not ready to go globally export. When you talk to their folks here out of Vancouver, they do have a couple of reps on the island. The first thing they're going to tell you is it's that walk before you run. And they often will define as, hey, maybe Vancouver is a new market for you, or Alberta is. So that's not my wheelhouse. I can't speak to Marissa or Dave's skill set around that, but I would highly recommend reaching out to the folks at the Export Navigator program. They're fantastic. That's a great starting point.
Mm-hmm. I did that program, actually.
Okay.
And I would recommend it. Actually, it was awesome. It was actually, I think they might sponsor you if your business is kind of in the running. Like, you don't have to be ready yet, but you put together your business plan. There's so many resources. It was just a great opportunity.
So Mark, this question, I'm going to direct it to you and others can comment. So it has to do with food hubs. Are there other regions that are doing a similar type of food hub as was described here? And if you had a crystal ball, Mark, for the next 6 to 12 months regarding getting goods to market, what would it say? How do entrepreneurs need to do, what do they need to do to be successful in the near future? So food hubs, what do they need to do to be successful in the next year?
Wow, that's a grandiose question. Well, there's other food hubs across the province, and interesting again. My colleague Dave and I on the panel here had a similar discussion around the commissary, and Dave helped me with the name in Vancouver, which was the first food hub in the province.
Yeah, the Commissary Connect, and they really focus on commercial kitchen space. And the interesting thing with the food hubs receiving investment from the province is that the province, in their foresight and vision, enabled communities to create a solution, a model of food hub that best meets their needs. So in Alberni, we really needed to get more potential realized from our aquaculture. So we were able to convert the former large single operator fish processing plant into micro processing plants for oyster producers, seaweed, kelp. There's another producer, Nova Harvest. They're into the oysters and mussels and sea cucumber game as well. There's another food hub in South Surrey Langley, the Cloverdale area, where they kind of overlap there, which is looking at unique solutions for their agricultural and food production needs. So that crystal ball is right in front of us. Actually, it hits me in the face every morning based on the emails and phone calls I get all day with the opportunity and people looking at how can food hubs and the partnerships that we're developing and facilitating, how can they be leveraged to really launch the ideas that we're always ready to go, if not because of the huge barrier of the cost of creating your own permitted CFIA or VIEA licensed facility.
And not that I was skirting the question, but thanks for that eloquent answer, Dave. But I guess in my crystal ball, my theme for the week at the summit and all the things that we're trying to do, albeit a challenge in COVID, because things I don't think are moving as fast as any of us would like to be, is I often find myself borrowing the phrase from a colleague of mine that's we're not moving fast enough. And I think that there's all these opportunities, if I take even the foreign trade zone from a VIEA perspective, we've been talking about that for 2 years, and it's not that we're certainly not focusing and getting momentum, but interestingly enough, with the food security production, COVID presents a unique opportunity for us. I really firmly believe that. Again, I said it in the session. Local matters. Think local. Island good. All of those things matter. And I think leveraging again those assets, whether it's Port Alberni or looking outside of that, to develop some of those opportunities. I just think the more that we can connect as island growers, producers, brewers, vintners, all those folks, I think if we can get everybody on the same song sheet and really create some of these economies of scale, I think we can go out and own. I think we can grow businesses here like people can't imagine. To harken back to my work in the seaweed industry, we believe in 5 years, and the business analysis that we've done, we believe that seaweed in British Columbia in 5 years is going to add $1 billion in GDP to the province. That's one area of food growth. So it's monumental.
So we've got about 10 minutes left. A couple of questions come into the chat. So just let me know if you've got a question there. The next one I have is, does anyone have suggestions of a fulfillment warehouse for small businesses here on the island, as well as on the East Coast? No cold storage required, dry goods. So warehouse capacity for small businesses. Dave, do you have a sense of that?
I'm not really involved at that level. Certainly would be happy to look into it. And, this is where I defer to people that are right in the trenches. Marissa and Mark.
Yeah, I would say on that one, you need to sort of hit the ground running and get out the phone book and look and see where there are warehouses and do some networking, maybe with local chambers or really you just need to make a bunch of cold calls to find out what's out there in the market that you're trying to serve, because there's probably many warehouse choices and you're going to want to visit them and get to know who owns the warehouse and if that business is a fit for you, because there's a variety of different people in the industry and they're not all run the same. So I would definitely do my research, and all that information is available if you just sort of jump in and go for it.
Just for a quick dovetail into Marissa's thought process and speaking specifically to the food, but given that it's dry goods, I would also put forth that given the current economic conditions, you might think outside of the box from, maybe it doesn't necessarily have to be a food warehousing business. There's just a lot of businesses out there with unused capacity. It was in our discussion last week that it's my understanding, and I did a little digging into it, but Bell Canada Enterprises in Ontario, in some of their opening massive office spaces that's currently not being utilized, they're repurposing them and growing food in Ontario in commercial office space. So that's thinking outside of the box. That's unutilized assets. So 100%. And Marissa's bang on. I think at the end of the day, you just have to pick up the phone and start asking those questions.
So next question, directed to you, Marissa, and others can comment. Curious to know how environmental and other factors have morphed your strategy in the last few years. And same question to you, the panelists. We talked a little bit about this, but talk a little bit more about the environmental factors factoring in your business strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we had environmental issues sort of built into our business when we conceived of it. So it was something we considered right from the beginning. We are in the dairy industry, so I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to, but we do grass-fed dairy. So we source our milk from farms where the cows eat grass, in which case they have less of an effect, right? Our goal is to have no GMOs for the feed for our cows. So that's an aspect. There's a lot to say about the plant-based diet, so I'm not sure where you're going with this question, but
actually, sorry, I meant I was thinking about the environment in general, not necessarily specifically environmental concerns, just the current environment we're in, and just harking back to 2016 when I heard a presentation from SVI.
Yeah, the business. Yeah. So I met Carolyn at SVI, the Social Venture Institute, at Hollyhock, and at that time I think our business was 3 years old, so now we're going on 8 years old, so maybe we're 4 years old. So we were in the startup phase. I think she saw me cry. Remember, like, it was the thick of it. Getting your business off the ground, it's not easy, like I was saying about it requiring a lot of collaboration and blood, sweat, and tears. But in terms of the environment, I think that there's a real demand for local food. And we've had a huge support for people that are looking to buy local and have healthy choices, to source food from a trusted source, to have transparency. So I think that the business environment has been really good for us. Again, I think that the Buy BC messaging and the programs that the government have supported a lot of local producers. And we're one of many that have made a good business in the last several years. I think in terms of our strategy, we're still focused on being, artisan grass-fed yogurt. And one of the things that I mentioned was that we do our own distribution. So we have 5 trucks, and we found a need in the food community that other people wanted to access the market. And because we're a dairy, we go to stores every week, and we do maintain our own relationships. So we are in control of that distribution process. So we have partnered with some other local food producers, and we are distributing other food brands. And so we're not doing it for everybody because we want to keep our business focused. We have some, goals around revenue targets and what the criteria of the product, because everything that I sell, I want it to be something that I would give to my family or sell to my friends. So so it's very specific, but distribution is a huge part of the food business. You're not going to sell unless you can get it to market. So we made strategic investments in our own trucking, in our ERP database, in our staffing. Like, instead of growing Tree Island, in just our production capacity or making new flavors, we've invested in our trucks and our truck drivers and our sales system. So, so I guess it's built in, the distribution is built into our strategy.
Great. Next question is directed to Dave. Can you speak to the potential connection between farmers markets and food hubs?
There's a huge potential there and opportunity, and in fact, we hope at the Port Authority to, in fact, we've already engaged in conversations with our two local farmers market associations to coordinate with them to move some of their activities or add their activities on a regular market event next to the food hub. So from what the population sees on the in the event space, we're working with them on that. So the food hub becomes that focal point for local regional food in the Alberni Valley in this part of the island, so people know where to come. You know, we're really focused on the dock becoming the place for food in Port Alberni. Now, from an actual production standpoint, as we know, the regulations are getting tighter or stricter, and rightly so, I suppose, to ensure safe food versus food security, but actually safe food for consumption for consumers. So that's requiring a lot of folks to bake their pies and breads and other things in a VIEA or CFIA permitted facility. Our food hub has that the commercial kitchen space, and there's opportunities to work with our anchor tenants in the seafood aquaculture space and leveraging their operations and the CFIA permits as well. And the food hub is just that. It's the vision is to be that hub to aggregate the interest and help it grow, and we're there to facilitate it. So I think there's a huge opportunity to work together between food hubs and farmers markets and expanding that reach to the consumer.
So we've got about 2 minutes left. I do see someone who has their hand up here. Yep, go ahead, unmute. You can unmute yourself.
Yes, thanks very much. The Crofton Mill it spends about $1 million a day here on Vancouver Island. And this is financially challenging times. And I know that generally when we think of buying local, we think of buying from the small producer in the area, but Crofton Mill does need our support. Now, I know that one of the things that they've done is they have changed their product mix to make themselves more profitable, of course. And one of the things they're doing is producing paper for wrapping, for essentially for providing packaging. And so I just wondered that are you looking at the Crofton Mill as a possible supplier for you, especially when you're thinking about all these packaging? Thank you.
Can someone answer that very quickly? Dave?
Yeah. The panelists?
Oh, yeah.
I defer to the business that is involved in it and has packaging.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've looked into a machine where we just buy blank packages and then buy paper to wrap it ourselves. I think it's an opportunity. It makes sense to use BC Forest products for.
Very good. That's all the time we have, everyone. Thank you very much for this really engaging conversation. Thank you to the panelists again for your insight. There's going to be more on this as we go forward. And let's buy Vancouver Island products. So, thank you.
Great.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.